kingdom اللي هي kingdom number 5, kingdom Animalia or the animal kingdom. And of course, as I explained before, that we have vertebrates and invertebrates according to the presence or absence of the vertebral column. معلش أنا هقفل الشات، لو حد هيعمل شات تاني هيبان قدامي an orange signal كده. I'm going to open it لأنه بياخد من مكان البورد قدامي. طب what are the general characteristics of all the animal kingdom, whether vertebrates or invertebrates? يعني the first general characteristic that we have to mention, the number of their cells. All of them are multicellular. There are no unicellular animals, of course. Their cells, they are true, they contain true nuclei. That's why they have a nucleus, or eukaryotic cells. They have a nucleus. They never have a cell wall or chloroplasts. No cell wall like plants, لا. No cell wall, no chloroplasts, never. You can never see a green animal. Chloroplasts. Right. Also, they feed by heterotrophic nutrition, and they feed on organic materials that are produced by other living organisms. At the beginning of the previous session, I said the types of nutrition, and I said that there is a heterotrophic nutrition where the herbivores, they feed on plants, carnivores, they feed on herbivores, and the omnivores, they feed on both herbivores and plants. All these materials that are eaten, they are made of organic substances. So we say that the feeding of animals depends on eating the organic substances that are produced by other living organisms. This is ready-made food, by the way. It means that the food is not done inside the body of the animal. And let's begin by the first group, which is vertebrates. And I'd like to remind you, when I was explaining classification, I said that there is a very large group called the kingdom and a smaller group called, who remembers? Yes, I didn't send the notes, but there was a video. يمكن عبد الرحمن بس الوحيد اللي ما استلمش الفيديو. Who remembers what's the group next to the kingdom? حد بص على الفيديو؟
Class؟
لا class بعد.
لا Amphibian؟
لا ما أنا هقول لك حاجة، أنا عندي بتبقى kingdom. This is the very, very large group. And this kingdom is divided into several. The next group is called phylum. Yes, phylum. Very good. يبقى هنا دلوقتي I'm going to explain the first phylum, which is phylum. مفروض إن scientifically they are called chordata, بس طبعا here they called it vertebrates. So the vertebrates, as you know, these are the animals that have a vertebral column, and this vertebral column, it is formed of a chain of bones, and each bone is called a vertebra. That's why we called it the vertebral column, and the plural is vertebrae. The vertebral column is just a chain of bones that are made of vertebrae that are joined end to end. Yani, suppose I'm going to draw the vertebrae like this. This is one vertebrum. It looks like this, like something like a spine. ولو هتاخدي human biology يا كنزي. I saw your question today.
Yes.
الhuman biology فيه structure of the vertebrae, not in OL. فالvertebrae they are just arranged end to end, وعلى فكرة بيبقى فيه هنا ما بينهم a joint. These are the vertebrae that form the vertebral column. والvertebral column of humans, for example, it is composed of 31 vertebrae. Okay, يعني it's not important to know the number, بس حبيت أدي just an example for the number of bones arranged end to end. The vertebrae, they have, all of them, they have a canal inside, like this, like it acts like a hole. يعني على the whole length of the vertebral column there is a canal أو a hole in the middle, and in this hole there is a very important structure that runs inside. This structure is called the spinal cord. طبعا في الشابتر بتاع الكوردينيشن هو الشابتر 13 هناخد ده تاني على السباينال كورد يعني. فالvertebrae they protect the spinal cord. The spinal cord is the most important nerve. It is in direct contact يعني الكونتينيويشن بتاعه the brain. this is very very important. That's why it has to be protected by a bony case, and this bony case is the vertebral column. طيب there are 5 classes of this phylum, and these classes are يعني لو قلت الفايلم vertebrates or chordata, they are divided into 5 classes. الكلاس يعني الفايلم يا كنزي بتدي class smaller group class fish, class amphibians, class reptilia or reptiles. We have another class birds, and we have the last class mammals. طبعا all these are English words مش Latin. let's start by the first class, which is the fish. What about fish? Our classes. Fish. There are general characteristics طبعا for the fish, and I'm going to add this picture. Fish. Here it is. Of course the drawing here has too much يعني بس يعني more than needed, but I'm going to explain it بصراحة. I'd like to give you full information. Here. About the general characteristics of fish, of course, all of them, they live in water. It means that they are aquatic organisms. The word aquatic organisms means that these organisms, they live in water. Aqua means water. All the fish, because they live in water, they do not have lungs. The fish are different from whales and dolphins, والturtles وكده دول حاجات تانية. But the fish, they do not have lungs, but they have gills. طب where are the gills found? The gills are found just under this or inside this covering. This covering is called the operculum. If I opened or lifted away this operculum, I'm going to see the gills just inside, and the gills look like this. Of course, they are dark red in color because they have several blood capillaries, numerous, مش several, enormous number of blood capillaries يعني through it or inside it. gills, they are very very important in the breathing or in the respiration of the fish. طب why? Because when the fish opens the operculum, when it is found in water, so the water is going to pass over these gills. So these gills, they will extract the oxygen dissolved in water. يعني as for us, we just inhale or we breathe in, and then extraction of oxygen is done in the lungs. But here, no, the gills, they extract oxygen dissolved in water to send it along the blood vessels, of course, to the body of the fish. Type for movement, the fish has a collection of fins for movement and for changing directions. As you can see here, that there are 2 types of fins. We have single fins like this one. You don't have to know the names. Dorsal means at the back, and this is the tail fin. These are single fins. Also, there is here an anal fin that protects the anus or the anal cavity, the cavity from which the fish gets out its feces. This is another fin, and there is another one on the other side. So this is a doubled fin. the pectoral fin that protects this part, and here is the pelvic fin, and there is another one on the other side. The fish uses the pelvic fin in order to change its direction. It uses the tail fin to drive it forwards. When the fin moves to and fro like this, or sideways, so the fish is driven forward. But what about the dorsal fin? When the dorsal fin is extended like this, it allows the fish to rise in water. And when it is like as if it is lying flat like this, so the fish is going to go down. This means that these fins, they help movement of the fish. As you can see here, that the fish skin is covered by scales. These scales, because you are going to see something in the classified questions, I'm going to send them, by the way, after we finish chapter 1. The fish, all the fish, they have bony scales, because there are some kinds of fish that have scales made of cartilage, like the shark. الcollection بتاع shark fish كده, they have a cartilaginous fish or cartilaginous scales. But what's the meaning of bony scales? It means that these scales, they look, they are very, very, very thin chips of bone, and they look like this. These are the scales. وبتلاقوا another scale here, like this, like as if they are building bricks. Okay, so these are the scales. So what about the next class, the amphibians? The second class is number 2, amphibians. What are amphibians? These are animals that live on land and in water in the same time. All its life, the adult life, they live on land, but they jump very near to water, or even jump in water of the ponds, mainly. Not the sea, not the river, no, في الponds بالأكثر. They just are found just near to a pond, or they jump in water of the pond. I think my voice was lost عشان I found unstable internet connection. I'm going to repeat this.
Yeah, Miss, I can't hear you.
Yes, you can hear me now, right? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
ما بيطلع لي قدامي unstable internet connection, I know that you cannot hear me, I stopped. Amphibians, they jump either in the pond or very near to the pond in order to lay their eggs. And then these eggs are laying in water and stay in water until they hatch to produce their young or their tadpoles. And then when tadpoles, they become adults, they jump on land to live their lives. This is the meaning of that these amphibians, they live on both land and water. What are the general characteristics of these amphibians? The amphibians, they have, of course, the example, let me mention the example at the beginning. Frogs, there are toads, and there is another kind called the newt. The newt has another name, the salamander. Now let me put the picture of these organisms. طبعا I'm going to, I think I have a picture to the toad. It's very, very near to the frog, but it's bigger in size and the color is different. Just a second, this is a frog. This is the one in the notes. I'm going to explain about the frog here, and then I'm going to show you the other pictures. Now look at this frog. According to the kind of skin, we say that the frog has moist skin. But what does this mean? The moist skin, because the skin produces a certain material which is called mucus, that keeps, and most of this mucus is made of water. This is like a sticky material that is produced from the skin of the frog, and it allows the skin to be moist. There is another thing that It has upper limbs or forelimbs and hind limbs. And the hind limbs are longer to allow the frog to jump for long distances when it extends these hind limbs. But look at the fingers. In between the fingers, let me expand this. Here there are webs. They look like a piece of skin in between the fingers of the lower limbs or of the hind limbs. There is a web. Of course, the web, it helps the frog to swim in water. But there is another important thing about the frog. I just mentioned that when the frogs, they lay eggs in water, or in other words, they breed in water. Breeding means that they are reproducing. Here they lay eggs in water, as I just said, and then the tadpoles, they are going to hatch. The tadpoles look like this. They have a head and they have a tail. And inside there are gills because they are found in water, so they breathe by gills. Later on, these gills, they disappear to be replaced by lungs, and forelimbs and hind limbs appear, so the tail is shortens until it looks like this. I can't see the tail here in this frog, but the tail becomes very, very short like this, and then this frog, it jumps on land to continue its life. This means that the young frog, or the tadpole, here is the word. This is the frog after hatching in water. It's called the tadpole. It breathes by gills, but when it becomes an adult, these gills, they disappear and they are replaced by lungs in order to breathe on land. Type. Let me put the picture of the other amphibians. التود it's much larger than the frog. الفرog يا جماعه بتبقى الكالر بتاعها greenish color, but the toad has a color that looks like somewhat brown or light brown. Here is the newt or the salamander. I think we all know it. Look at this. We see it in the there is like in the northern coast مثلا in Egypt, we see these salamanders running on the on land. Just to know the pictures, how do they look? Let's go to the next class, which is class Reptilia or Reptiles. This is the next class, and I'll give you an example for reptiles. We have, for example, the tortoise, the turtle. What's the difference between both? Who knows what's the difference between a tortoise and a turtle? What's the difference? Who can tell me?
A turtle lives in the ocean and a tortoise is on land.
Mm-hmm. And the turtle?
It lives in the ocean.
Yes, very good. And of course, there's I cannot mention something about their size, because the tortoise, they can live for 200 years and they are very, very, very large. But the difference here is that the turtle, it lives in the ocean, and the tortoise, it lives on land. Also, we have the crocodile. We have the snake. All of these are vertebrates, but I found that some students, they consider the snake as an invertebrate. The snake is a vertebrate. It has a very long vertebral column, but it's mistaken for an invertebrate, but this is wrong. This is a vertebrate among the reptile family or the class Reptilia. But what about the general characteristics of these reptiles? The skin of the reptiles, I have a picture, but it's not that clear. Let me add it. It's not very, very clear. I think it's here. Where are they? Reptiles. No, this is a newt. Maybe I erased it, maybe, I don't know, because it wasn't very clear. Of course, everybody knows how the snake looks like and the crocodile, but there's no need for a picture. It's not very clear here. Let me give you the characteristics of the reptiles. Their skin is scaly. It means that there are scales on the skin. Type. What's the difference between the scales of the reptiles and the scales of the fish? The scales of the fish are like somewhat smooth, but the scales of the reptiles, no, they are very, very hard and they are pointing like this. They are very hard. That's why we sometimes call them the horny scales, because they are very, very hard. Also, they lay eggs with a different from the eggs of the birds, for example, is that their shell is rubbery, a rubbery shell, as if it's formed of very hard rubber. Here, the reptiles, they do not breed in water. يعني the shell of their eggs is waterproof, and this prevents the drying out of the eggs. يعني طبعا all the reptiles, they do not breed in water, so they breed on land. So it's very dangerous for the embryo inside that these eggs are exposed to the sun rays, so the shell may dry out. That's why this rubbery shell is a rubbery substance which is waterproof, so it keeps the water inside and prevents the heat of the sun from evaporating the water. Now let's go to the next class, number 4, which is class birds. Let me give you a hint about the egg of the bird. I'm sorry. The egg of the bird is again, sorry, is again waterproof. It's surrounded by a waterproof hard shell, and of course the body is covered with feathers. And I explained ليك بالتحديد يا عبد الرحمن last time that there are modifications that happen in the skeleton of or in the shape of the bird. Here is it. Is that the upper limbs or the forelimbs of the bird is modified into wings. So if you can see this picture here, here are the upper limbs of the bird. Here are they. And of course, these are wings. So these upper limbs or forelimbs, they are modified into wings to help the bird in flying. Look at the legs. If I enlarge this a bit, here, look at these. The legs here is covered with scales. Okay, and of course this bird is extending its fingers. هي المفروض بتبقى grasping fingers like this to allow the birds to grasp their prey or to grasp the food. The worms, the prey of the eagles, for example, the hawks, they grasp it with their fingers. Now, all the birds, of course, have a beak, and this is a modified mouth, or modified jaws. The beaks differ according to the kind of feeding, or what the bird eats. Sometimes the beak is very long and needle-shaped like this. It means that this beak has to be to pierce plants, for example. Yani if there is a cactus like this, so the bird pierces its long beak, pointing beak in the cactus flesh, so that it can absorb the water from inside, or take in the water from inside. Other beaks, they look like this. This is to catch, for example, the worms, okay, or to dig with this beak in order to search for the worms. There are several kinds of beaks, and these beaks differ according to the kind of food of the bird. There is a very, very important property for the animals, or the vertebrate animals, and let me add it here in a separate page, please. There is something dealing with the temperature of these animals. Some animals, we call them ectothermic animals, and there are other animals called endothermic animals. The ecto means outside, and endo means inside. And thermal, of course, thermic is coming from the word thermal, which means heat. Ectothermic animals, if this is an animal, its temperature of its blood differs according to the temperature of the surroundings. It means that if the animal is found in a cold environment, so its blood is going to be cold. If it's found in a hot environment, its blood is going to be hot. And all the vertebrates, or the classes of vertebrates, they are ectothermic except. So here we have the fish, amphibians, and the reptiles. Their blood changes, their blood temperature changes by changing of the temperature of their surroundings. Only the birds and mammals, they are endothermic. But what does this mean? It means that their blood temperature is constant. It is fixed at a certain degree. It does not change whatever the surrounding temperature is. Yani, if I give you an example by human beings, our normal temperature is 36.8 up to 37. This is the normal range of temperature for a healthy human, not for a sick one. طبعا if we are sick, the temperature rises too much. Here, the average normal temperature is always 36.8 ل 72. 37, I'm sorry, 72 تبقى كارثة. whatever the surrounding temperature is, يعني we feel hot, we sweat in order to reduce our temperature. The only vertebrate classes that have a fixed temperature, or we call them endothermic, are the birds and the mammals. So here the bird is an endothermic animal. Type. This is about the birds. What about the mammals بقى اللي هي طبعا we are among the mammals, class Mammalia or mammals. The mammals, they have characteristic features as well, is that their skin is covered with hair or fur. But what's the difference between both? The fur is very, very thick hair. Thick hair, I mean by this word is that the hair itself is thicker, and there is a great number of these hair. So we call them fur. Like the fur of a bear, for example, the fur of a squirrel, this is fur. But if you looked at the hair that covers our skin as humans, this is hair. But the fur, too much hair, and the hair itself has a thickness more than our hair طبعا. This is the difference between both. For all the mammals, their skin, either it is covered with hair, or they have hair, or it is covered with fur. All the mammals, they give birth. But what's the meaning of giving birth? It means that they do not lay eggs. They give birth to a grown fetus or embryo. After giving birth to their young or to their offspring, they start to feed them by breast milk, which means suckling of breast milk. Of course, this milk is formed inside certain glands. Ida, where were you? Veronica was disconnected. She's still joining now. I couldn't hear her disconnect. I think there's something wrong with her internet connection. Up till now, she cannot join. Veronica, when did you log out? I couldn't hear the ring in my ears, and if you had them logging out. What did you miss here, Veronica? What did you miss from my explanation? Veronica? Hello, Veronica?
I'm not sure, my internet cut off.
I know. I just noticed, يعني, عادة when you log out, I hear a bell ringing. I couldn't hear it. I didn't hear it. طب, you heard this information about the mammals or not?
No.
Type. This is the last class of vertebrates, and they are called mammals. Their skin is covered with hair or fur. And I explained what's the difference between fur or hair. The fur is made of a very large numbers of hair, and the hair is very thin, while the fur has thicker hair. So the fur differs than the hair in that the fur has thick hair that is very much more in number. All the mammals, they give birth to their young. It means that they do not lay eggs, but they give birth, and their young afterwards they suckle breast milk. It means that they feed on breast milk. And this milk is formed in certain glands inside the breast that are called mammary glands. Look at this word. We called our parent mama because of this mammary glands. After this word, this is a word how they derived the word of that we used to call our mothers from the mammary glands that are found in the breast, because this denotes this is the mother. All the young of the mammals, they feed on breast milk. There is another thing, that during the pregnancy of these mothers, the baby is developing inside a certain structure of the body of the mothers, and this structure is called the uterus. The baby is found here, and it is developed here. For example, let me draw it like this. And there is something here that is called placenta. And from this placenta, the baby, the developing baby, is feeding inside the uterus while it is still formed, while it is still inside the uterus of the mother. It is still a developing embryo, so it has to feed. So the food comes from the food and oxygen, of course, from the mother to the baby across this placenta. So these are characteristics of the mammals. They feed their young by breast milk produced in mammary glands, and they have a placenta in their uterus in order to feed their developing embryo. Type. Actually, I do not agree with Cambridge book in this part, because they put certain descriptions that are going to be learned later on. فبتبقى يعني the students, they are somewhat confused about this. لكن في chapters that are dealing with these parts, the placenta, the diaphragm, that's going to explain now, the heart. They are dealing with, and there are chapters dealing with these parts, but I have to mention them now, that all the mammals, they have a diaphragm. So what's the meaning of a diaphragm? Suppose for human beings, this is the head, and these are the upper limbs. Here is the trunk. The upper part of the body is called the chest of the trunk, yani, والlower part of the trunk is called the abdomen. In between the chest and the abdomen, there is a certain sheet of muscles, and this sheet of muscles is called the diaphragm. I will not explain anything about it now except in its chapter. لأن طبعا in this part it's just written as a word without any explanation. But you have to know طبعا in the diaphragm is a muscular sheet or a sheet of muscles that separates the chest from the abdomen. It looks like an umbrella inside our bodies, but it's formed of muscles. The heart of all the mammals looks like this, and it is divided from inside into 4 chambers. Chamber means a room. يعني 4 hollow rooms in which the blood is found. All the mammals, they have a heart like this. The mammals, they have jaws. And these jaws, they carry the teeth. And the teeth types, they differ they differ according to the kind of mammal. But the teeth have certain shapes. Some of them are called incisors. Some of them are called canines. And some of them are called premolars. Some of them are called molars. And again, there is a chapter dealing with this, digestion. Let me give you a hint. The incisors in humans, they are the 4 teeth that are found in the front of the mouth. Suppose this is the mouth, for example. We have here 4 incisors in each jaw in the front, by which we bite food. And this is the lower jaw. We have 4 incisors. Canines are next to the incisors, and they are pointed, somewhat pointed like this in humans. In animals like the tiger or the lion, these canines are protruding out of their mouth. And then following the canines, there are broad, somewhat broad teeth that are called premolars. These are 2. And deeper than the premolars, there are the molars, which are the flattest teeth that we have inside, of course, in each jaw. This is just an introduction على الteeth, but we have to learn them in details later on. All the mammals, they have 2 jaws that carry teeth, and the number of these teeth, they depend on the kind of mammal. Also, I just mentioned that they are all endothermic. And what's the meaning of the word endothermic? Is that their body temperature does not change with changing the temperature of their surroundings. Type. When I'm going to send you the notes, you are going to see after the vertebrates, you are going to find a table that compares between the 5 classes of vertebrates in every aspect, okay, like a revision or a summary to the class, the vertebrate phylum. I'm going, of course, to send it today, inshallah, but after my next class, I'm going to send it at night. You are going to see this table as a summary for all what I said about the vertebrates. Now let's go to the second phylum, which is the phylum dealing with invertebrates. But I'm going to, as the book says, I'm going to explain just one phylum. And this is called phylum, a kind of invertebrates. It is called a phylum Arthropods. لأن طبعا we have several يعني الinvertebrates مفروض ان they have several classes. They just mentioned that the phylum Arthropods, and let me explain this word. Arthro means that they are jointed. and pods means legs. It means that the legs have joints like this. Okay, this is the meaning of arthropod. So what are the general characteristics of these arthropods? As I just said, they have jointed legs, and they do not have a skeleton, but they have an outer covering that we call the exoskeleton. Exo means from outside, and skeleton, it means that their skeleton is outside their body, not like us. Yani all the vertebrates, the skeleton is found inside the body, but this is the exoskeleton, or it is found outside the body, and it is just like a covering. And this covering, it gives the body of these arthropods their shape. يعني exoskeleton they allow the arthropods to live even on dry land. And by the way, this is a waterproof material. Here, its name is chitin, but they didn't write this word here, so I'm not going to mention what the exoskeleton here is made of. This phylum, or these arthropods, they are divided again into classes. And let me begin by the first class, which is class Crustacea. The Crustacea, البلورال بتاعها Crustacea. The Crustacea, the example that we have are the shrimps, prawns, we have lobsters, what else? Crabs. All these are Crustacea. About the general characteristics of Crustacea, there is another crustacean called the woodlice. Okay, the general characters of the Crustacea. Let me put a picture to this Crustacea. Here it is. This is a lobster, of course. طبعا the number of legs والحاجات دي كلها they differ according to the kind of Crustacea. They are not all the same, but they have the same details, but different in numbers. So look here that all the Crustacea, they move by 4 pairs of walking legs. These are walking legs, 1, 2, 3, 4, and on the other side, 1, 2, 3, 4. Who is chatting? Okay, Kenzie. Why don't crabs consider amphibians as they breathe underwater and on land? لا بصي يا Kenzie, the crabs, they are not the ones that get out on land. These are other kinds. I don't know their name, مش في بالي دلوقتي. بس الcrabs that we know, they look like this. They as if they are rounded like this, والlegs بتاعتهم كده وبتبقى فيه legs below. Okay, these live in the sea or in oceans. But the other one that lives on land, it looks like this lobster, but it is gray in color and it's smaller. Okay, these are the ones that get out on land and return back. And they can breathe on land as well, as because they contain, or they have inside their bodies something like the lungs that are called the lung books, okay, inside their body, but they are not crabs. No, they are
Okay.
other kind of Crustacea. Very good question. Thank you. Right. The first feature here is that all of them, they have 4 walking legs, and of course they are jointed. يمكن picture هنا cannot show the joint قوي. The joint أهو. Here is a joint, and these are the other joints. وهنا joint. Look at this. Okay, so all these are joints that separate between parts of their legs. They breathe by gills, okay, inside them. طبعا they do not have lungs. The ones that get out on water, they have lung books, something called the lung book. But here we deal with the ones that live in water. They have gills. And of course, as I just told you, that they are aquatic animals, or they live in water. You don't have to know anything more about الكراستيشيا. This is all what's written in the book. كان الأولد curriculum أو الأولد syllabus يعني explaining this in details, these kinds of creatures. The second class is class Insecta or insects. الانسكتس دي عبارة عن a very very wide class. يعني it has so many members, so many species, so many forms. But the best طبعا example that we all know are the house flies. We know the mosquitoes. We know the fleas, the cockroaches, whatever. We have butterflies, bees, all these are insects. But what are the characteristic features of the insects? Again, they are covered from outside by a firm waterproof exoskeleton. All these are covered by exoskeletons, and this exoskeleton, because it is waterproof, it prevents water from evaporating from their bodies, because the lifestyle of all these creatures like insects, they are mostly found in the sun during the whole day long. There is a great liability for evaporation of the water from their bodies, where this will kill them طبعا. Their skeleton is waterproof because this material prevents the evaporation of water outside their bodies. Now I'm going to add a picture, disgusting picture, but I have to edit, for a housefly. There is another picture for a mosquito, بس اللي موجودة in the book is the housefly. That's why I'm going to add it. يا رب ألاقيها. I cannot find it. I find the mosquito only. In my notes في أصل الفولدر ده was of the old syllabus. I'm going to put the mosquito. They have the same parts. Here, as you can see, this is a hand-drawn picture طبعا. These are the jointed legs, 3 pairs. 3 pairs of jointed legs. And look at the number, because these 3 pairs, I'm going to differentiate between the insects and another kind of organisms that I'm going to explain now. So here, the insects, they have 3 pairs of jointed legs, and look at their body. The body is segmented, or it is divided into segments. This is a segment, this is a segment, and this is another segment. The first segment is the head. The second segment, this green one, it is called the thorax. The thorax is another word for chest. And the last segment is the abdomen. Don't look at the details on the drawing, please. So here are the segments of insects: head, thorax, and abdomen. The insects, they respire. Look at these holes. These are the organs of respiration or of breathing by which the insect gets air inside the body. The openings, they are called spiracles, and inside the spiracles there are structures that are called trachea. Of course, not like our trachea, but they are called trachea inside these spiracles. You just have to know that the insects, they respire, or they breathe, I'm sorry, by trachea, because there is a difference between breathing and respiration. Of course, most of the insects, they have wings, and these wings are either, in some books, they wrote either 1 pair or 2 pairs of wings, but this is wrong. Yani in our book, it's written correct that, yani, for example, if you looked at the housefly, You can see only 2 wings. But what about the other pair? They are very, very small. That's why we call them vestigial wings. But what's the meaning of this word? Vestigial means that they were large and by their evolution they became very, very small. Vestigial wings. Other insects, both wings become vestigial. They cannot appear like the ants, like the fleas. They have vestigial wings. They are not appearing. They are very, very, very small wings that you can never see. As for example, the dragonfly. A dragonfly, the 4 wings, they are very large, like this. It looks horrible when it flies like this, as if a helicopter is flying. Both pairs of wings in the dragonfly, they are not vestigial. Any question about what I explained من الinvertebrates حتى before I proceed في the next class? When you are not telling anything, I assume that you understand, right? ولا في حد مش فاهم حاجة؟ No comments. طيب. Number 3. Class arachnids. And the examples here are spiders and, for example, scorpions. And there are others like mites, ticks. They are land-dwelling organisms. It means that they live on land and they have 4 pairs of jointed limbs. Let me put this picture. وهنا بيجي question دايما في this part. I'm going to explain it now. But let me add the picture. By the way, I found the housefly. There is the spider. Here it is. This is a spider. Don't look at this part. As you can see here that we have 4 jointed legs, and on the other side they have 4 jointed legs. It means that there are 4 pairs of jointed legs. Remember the insects, they were 3 pairs of jointed legs. Now, in the insects, I said that the body is divided into 3 segments, which were head, thorax, and abdomen. But here, look at the body parts. Only 2 segments. This is a segment, and this is a segment. In the insects, we have head and thorax separated from each other. But here, the head and the thorax, they are fused with each other. That's why we said that it has only 2 segments. This is because the head and the thorax, they are fused together, and we call both of them together the cephalo. Cephalo means head in Latin, thorax. It means the head and the thorax are joined together. And the other segment is the abdomen, and it is very clear in front of us here. This is the abdomen, all this. And here is the cephalothorax. Arachnids, they breathe by certain structures inside their body that are called the lung books, like those found in the creature that I don't know its name that Kenzie asked about. Here they breathe by trachea, and the plural is tracheae. يعني in the exams, I saw this question so many times to compare between the arachnida and the arachnids and the insects. In the past, they considered that both of them are insects, all the insects and the arachnids. But later on, they found some differences, which are that the insects have 3 pairs of jointed legs, while the arachnids, they have 4 pairs of jointed legs. The body of the insect is divided into 3 segments, which are head, thorax, and abdomen, while the body of the arachnid is divided into 2 segments, the cephalothorax and the abdomen. Insects, they breathe by tracheae, and the arachnids, they breathe by lung pooks. Right. What about the last class? The last class, it is class myriapoda. Or myriapods, without an E, sorry. Myriapods, the examples here, I'm going to write the examples and then we'll show you the picture. Centipedes and millipedes. Peds means legs. Cent in French means 100. It means that this kind has 100 legs, okay? And mille in French means 1,000. So this kind has 1,000 legs. Now let me add this picture. معلش, this chapter is يعني not as interesting as the other chapters. Look here at this one. This is a centipede here, centipede, and this is the millipede. Look at the number of their legs. They are different from each other. Now here is for the general characteristics of this class is that the body is full of segments. Here is the head and the rest is the body. It's very difficult to compare between the thorax and the abdomen. It's very difficult. They all look like each other. But when this organism starts to grow, it adds segments just below the head. Yani the segments that come after the head, they are increased, so the length of this organism will increase. السنتيبيد دايما from every segment there comes 1 pair of legs. But in the millipedes, each segment carries more than 1 pair of legs, ممكن 2 pairs, 3 pairs, whatever. This is all what you have to know about the animal kingdom.